Hello, welcome back to the show. I am your host, Blake, and today I'm talking about one of my favorite subjects in this season, rest. This was actually supposed to be like a two-part series with my episode that came out with Becky Thompson, but this is actually the guest where I lost her episode and ended up recording and putting out the episode that's just me talking about this season of pruning and what God is doing, which I'm really thankful that it kind of went the way that it did because I don't know if I would have recorded that episode if I hadn't lost this one. And Eryn was really kind and willing to come back on. And here's my favorite part. I really feel like the conversation was even better the second time than it was the first time because in the month that has passed since Eryn and I originally recorded, I feel like I've been in a crash course on rest. God has been working on me around this subject for a while, but for the last month, he was like, babe, we've got to get this. Like, we've got to catch up a little bit. And he's shown me a lot and taught me a lot. And so I felt like I had more to offer in the conversation. I had more thoughts and experiences. And then Eryn is just a powerhouse about this subject. So Eryn Lynum is my guest. She is a master naturalist, which means she teaches people about nature and creation. And so she has this really incredible perspective about rest, coming at it from how God has presented rest to us in creation. Because yes, he gave us his example and Jesus's example, and there's tons of scripture about it. But he also was so good and kind that he showed us in creation with animals, insects, plants, the way that things hibernate and come back. All of that is this welcoming into a rhythm of work and rest. And so Eryn can just tell you the craziest, coolest facts about these things that you come into contact with that you never knew. And it all leads back to this idea of Sabbath and that our best work comes out of rest. So if you are someone that has been alongside me in this battle for rest and kind of putting down and laying down the things that you're holding on to and surrendering and asking God, like, what does this look like? What does rest look like? I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation. Eryn is also the host of one of my kids' favorite podcasts, Nat Theo. And so if you are looking for a great kids podcast, 10 out of 10 recommend. They listen to it almost every morning, and then they're walking around spouting all of these really incredible facts and knowledge about creation. So she's just all around a family favorite. Quick word from this week's sponsor, which is the Olive app. We are all trying to eat healthier, and sometimes the industry makes that even more difficult with their deceptive practices. If you listened to last week's episode with the founders of Good Ranchers, you know what I'm talking about. And so the Olive app makes it super simple. Scan a barcode, it gives your food a score out of 100. It tells you its processing profile, if it has seed oils or gluten, toxic things that are in it that maybe aren't on the nutrition label. And if it's a food that you should avoid, it tells you a swap. So we have actually found some of our favorite healthy swaps using the Olive app. My kids run around the grocery store and scan stuff, but I am usually religiously behind them checking it as well. So you can get the Olive app in the App Store today. All right, Eryn, I'm going to say welcome back to the show because we actually recorded once already and then I lost it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
I know. So we recorded about a month ago and I literally don't know what happened, but it was the craziest thing. Only 15 minutes of the episode downloaded. But then it worked out because I sat down and I did an interview to kind of take that, or I did a solo to take that interview spot and it ended up being really good. So I feel like God was working and now we're just going to do it again and it's fine.
Totally. I love that. I'm going to just see our first conversation as just a fun conversation we got to have together.
We got to have. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Because this is another episode about rest. So I have an episode that came out with my friend Becky Thompson about healing rest. But what I love about the conversation that we're going to have is it's more about like how God created rest for us. And you have this very like specific knowledge set that pulls nature into it. And I know myself and so many people that listen have such a connection to creation. And I love seeing myself in it and seeing who God is in it. And so it's just a whole, like, that's the thing about rest is you can talk about rest all day and never like expend the different angles and different ways that it shows up in our lives. And so I would love just to start to hear about like your journey with rest and how nature pulls into that, because you have like knowledge and also a passion and a love for it.
Mm. Well, first, I love what you just said about there's all these different angles because I think that's a big hangup is that a lot of people for a long time, myself, don't see it that way. We think of rest
Mm.
as this really like linear one thing, and society paints it as idle or lazy. And so we have to really broaden our horizons, our perspective on what rest can be, how God designed rest, and to really see it from these different angles. And that was
Yeah.
a big part of my journey as I started looking at scripture. Okay, what does the scriptures say about rest? I found that it is everywhere, cover to cover. Like the roots of rest run so deep and wide throughout scripture. In, yes, Sabbath, which we'll go into, but also this concept of abiding, resting in
Mm.
God's presence, and
Mm-hmm.
seasons of rest during waiting and Selah pauses, like all these different aspects of rest. And that's where my degree and passion is in theology. So I'm looking at it there. And then I'm trained as a certified naturalist, and that basically means a nature teacher. So I use nature in my books and my podcast to teach theology. So then I start looking for rest in creation. And the same thing happened. I began to see it everywhere that God designed all of the plants and all of the creatures to thrive through these rhythms of rest. So, why would we be any different? We're not. He designed us to thrive through rest. It's not a weakness, it's not an afterthought. It is actually what supports all of the work He created us to do.
Yeah. God, that's good. I love that you use the word rhythm. I've found myself drawn to that word a lot lately. Rhythm instead of schedule, instead of even routine or even I've been kind of trying to take the word balance out of my vocabulary because that seems like a lot of work for me trying to balance it, or I can just trust that this is the rhythm that God has me, my family, what my work, whatever in for this season. And rhythm has just felt right. Like it's felt innate in the things that I've been doing and the ways that I've been growing. And so when you said that, I was like, yes, rhythms. That's what it is, like rhythms of rest in nature and in scripture and in the way that God created everything, that it shows up everywhere. Also, side note, just plug, we started listening to Nat Theo and the girls
Oh,
love it.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you.
Love
I'm so
it.
glad they enjoyed it. It is the most fun I've ever had working outside of my home. It is
Yeah.
a blast.
And you just, I mean, even people can hear you on the podcast. You just have one of those voices that people want to listen to. And so it is the cutest
Oh,
thing. We have an Alexa in our kitchen and they pull my bar stools around up to the Alexa and they just sit and listen to Nat
oh,
Theo and
that's
it's
so cute.
adorable. And they'll
I
reach out
love
and
it.
pause it and talk to each other about it. And so
Oh,
shameless
fun.
plug. I've been talking on my Instagram lately a lot about kid podcasts and how it's such a great tool to give your kids
Oh, yeah,
something and also like go run and have 5 minutes to yourself and maybe I don't know
totally.
refresh or
Screen free.
read or yes, but it's
Yep.
screen free
Doesn't
and they're
cost
learning.
anything.
It doesn't cost anything and they're engaged. It's just been
Yeah.
such a win. So quick squirrel moment. Nat Theo is so great and I'm learning because sometimes like I'm in the kitchen with them and listening and we're having conversation and learning about it, but you are such an incredible educator. And so your book Nature of Rest, which just came out a couple of months ago, is very in rhythm with what we're talking about, that these things, there's patterns of rest in nature. And anybody that like pays attention to creation can off the top of their head go, yeah, like hibernation, things bloom and then they die, but you found way more than that, than just kind of the surface level things as you were digging into that.
Yeah, complete. Like I said, it was everywhere. And I
It's
love
everywhere.
what you're saying about rhythm because I mean, rhythm goes right along with nature. And when you think about rhythm, rhythm doesn't always stay the same. Like rhythm can change and it can
Yes.
speed up a little bit and then slow down, but there's this cadence to it. And so what I began to see is that in nature and in scripture, we get these concepts of daily rest and of
Mhm.
weekly rest and of seasonal rest. And it can look different from time to time and season to season.
So, this is actually something that I've been thinking about lately as I learn how to rest because I'm a little bit of a baby. We talked when we recorded last time, coming out of hustle culture and performance and believing that productivity really dictated a lot of my worth. And I've learned a lot. Like God kind of put me through a crash course for the last couple of months. And I got to sit down and talk to people like you and Becky. And I see so many of those conversations as God, yes, like extending it to my audience, but he's pouring into me. He's going, girl, you gotta get this. Cause like what you're doing isn't working, you know? And you made a comment earlier that society views rest as idle or lazy. And I am fighting that narrative sometimes. Like you
Hmm.
and I are recording the day after Labor Day. And so I was able to be off Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And by Monday, I was like, too much. This is too much resting.
Yeah.
It's too much relaxing. I'm like, moving into laziness or even like it's almost like I'm not using my gifts to their full potential. And then you
Hmm.
started and thankfully I was able to go, no, no, no. This is good. And this is stretching your capacity for faith. Like that is what I'm finding is that rest is faith. Rest is faith
Oh,
that
yeah.
God will continue to keep things spinning when you're not.
Yes, that's so good. So true. Yeah. And I agree. It can be really uncomfortable. I mean, think about rest, how just countercultural it is. And so everything is really set up to make us fail in
Mm,
our society when it comes to rest. And I believe a big part of that is this idea of rest is just idleness or stopping. Now, sometimes it has to be, especially in extreme circumstances. But what really made a difference for me in my family's practice of Sabbath and in daily rest rhythms is to see rest as productive. I'm type A. I love getting things done. And when I started to see just how effective and fruitful and powerful rest is, that's when it changed. And so, like this past long weekend, yeah, there was a lot of time sitting and resting, like outside on the back deck, reading a good
mhm,
book. But then, yeah, by that third day of rest, you kind of start to get antsy. And that's okay because rest can also be refreshing activities. And so our
mhm.
family, we went up to the mountains and we looked for beaver dams and lodges. And we like had so much fun wandering slowly through the woods, walking up the river and the creeks and finding all these signs of the beavers working. And so when I came back to work this morning, like 6 a.m. this morning, I'm sitting at the desk and I am writing. I mean, my mind can't even like my
So
fingers can't keep up
fast.
with my mind
Yeah.
about beavers because it's
Yeah.
so inspiring. And so, like, that's a silly example, but these refreshing activities, rest was always meant to be this time to stop, to delight, to refresh, to be inspired. So no, it's not just idle, it's not boring. It's how God really prepares us for going into the next week, the next season, the next project.
Yes, it is, and that is so accurate. The coming back and having all the words or all of the inspiration when that I think that was a big part of it for me, really starting to step into rest in the like March, April area of this year. I felt run dry. I felt like I didn't really have a lot to give. Life started requiring significantly more of me in that season and I love my work just like you do. And I felt like I was coming to it like, I got nothing because I'm tired and my brain is tired. And that was a big pivot moment for me. And I don't think it matters what kind of work you do. That is not exclusive to online or creative
Mm-mm.
even work. No matter what you do, if you are not just taking a break from the work, like actually resting, you are on a path to burning out. And then like it's funny that spiral that you'll get in where when you're resting, you feel like you're not doing enough. But then if you don't rest, you can't do the things that you
Yeah.
want to do and that God has gifted you to do. And so I think sometimes we have to learn that lesson the hard way. We have to kind of like run into the wall a couple of times before you go, okay, so rest is productive. Rest is part of hard work. Resting and allowing my brain and my heart and my mind and my body to kind of recalibrate and then get back into the rhythm is how this works well, how I keep running my race
Mhm.
instead of sprinting until you're exhausted and then being like, oh, I can't run anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it really is this harmony of
Mm,
work and rest together. And both of those came before the curse, before the fall. Like God designed us to do creative, purposeful,
yeah.
fruitful work. And he also designed us to do all that work through his gift of rest.
Yeah. And you touched on that rest isn't always just laying on the back deck reading a good book, although I did that too. And that is rest. And that is
Yes.
great. But it is also, I have this graphic saved, which I need to share it when I share this episode. And it's, those graphics, it's just a whole bunch of text. And the beginning of it says, rest is, and then it's just this laundry list of things that when you read them, you go, yes, a walk would feel restful, or eating a meal without screens is rest, or,
Yeah.
touching grass, playing with your kids. Like that's what we did. We did that most of the weekend. We just went out. We were on the water. My husband is a river rat. If we can be by water, he is happy. And so we were in water the whole weekend playing and talking about things. And yeah, like, is that an alligator? No, it's not an alligator. Like, what's the difference? And then we're Googling alligators and crocodiles, those kinds
Hey,
of
that's
things.
next week's episode is
No
alligators or crocodile.
way.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Oh my gosh, the girls are gonna freak out. That's so exciting. I can't wait to listen to it. That's so funny. But just like redefining, I think some of us have this very rigid view of rest, and that it is naps, laying on the couch, reading a book, or binging a movie, a movie series. Those things aren't bad. But I have an episode that's like way at the beginning, and it's that there's like 7 types of rest, and that you need sensory rest and spiritual rest and physical and mental, and you need creative rest. And so sometimes it's about evaluating and getting like slowing down enough to be able to get real about what do I need, because sometimes I need a nap.
Yeah.
That is what I need. And sometimes I need to go for a run, and those
Yes.
things seem so different from each other, but they're both life-giving and restful if
Yeah.
done correctly.
Completely. And I think that the deeper we abide with God, who is the author of rest, the quicker we can identify what kind of rest we need. Like Jesus
Amen.
promised in Matthew 11, rest for our souls. And then we also see Jesus napping on a boat and resting
Amen.
his body and
Yeah.
getting away to a quiet place. In the Greek, that's eremos, a quiet place. And so resting his mind and resting from the crowds and the schedule. And so, yeah, all these different kinds of rest. And this has been a real practice for me to just identify what kind of rest I need. And I finally gotten to the point where normally, what I need is some type of rest that will inspire me and
Mhm.
refresh me. A lot of times, that's a walk outside or run through the woods, being out in creation. But once in a while, I'd say probably every few weeks or so, I feel my body completely shut down. And it only takes me a little while, and I'll be like, oh, I need a 4-hour nap. And
Mhm.
that's literally what it is now. And I did this just the other day where I I don't know if it's psycho related or what it is, but I get to this
Probably.
point where I'm just yeah, right? Yeah, about yeah, every few weeks probably.
When you said every few weeks, I was like, "Ooh, probably."
Yeah, but for real, and that I just know right away I need a 4-hour nap, and if I sit at the computer and try to keep working, the work is gonna be terrible,
This would be
and there's
trash.
nothing I can do besides be tell my husband, "Hey, I need to nap," and he'll usually, like, let me just, like, check
Crash.
out for 4
Yeah.
hours. He won't wake me up even if it's, like, dinner time because he
Yeah.
knows too that's what I need.
Yeah. And look, you brought a very important element of this that I'm pretty passionate about into it. And that is being a woman and
Mhm.
having 4 different parts of your cycle, 4 different phases where you are almost like 4 different people. And so, what's killing a lot of women is trying to do the same thing and function at the same level 30 to
Mhm.
31 days a month. that is not what your body was built for. It's not how God created your body. And I understand that we all have responsibilities. And I unfortunately also understand that we are not all married to wonderful men that are like, go take your 4 hour nap or your
Right,
3 hour
right.
bath. You know, I am I am married to what I like to call him a unicorn. He makes no sense, but he is the best, most wonderful man that I kind of can't believe is real most of the time. And yeah, that couple of days before my cycle, I'm a little bit worthless. Like I am so tired. And but you know what, when you're, in that late luteal, my house, I'm nesting and I'm cleaning and I'm going through things, and so it's like a different kind of productivity. I may not be
Yeah,
cranking out what I consider to be productivity, but slowing down and honoring the rhythm of your body and the month, and leaning into the things that you're naturally kind of inclined towards, which may be more like intimate conversations, or like I said, like going through little parts of your house, or just, oh my gosh, resting. Maybe that's the only time of the month that you let yourself rest. I've gotten so that, I have like a cycle tracking app, and on my calendar, the like, that 2 or 3 day window where I'm probably going to start, I literally put period predicted so that I can remember you're not falling apart. You haven't lost all ability to do the work that you love or be the person that you are. Your
yeah,
body, all of your hormones are changing. Like it's literally just a reminder to give myself grace, and to ask the people in my life to extend maybe a little bit extra grace to
yeah.
me too.
I think that's so smart, and even that just reflects, like, what we see in creation with the rhythms
Yes.
and the cycles. Like, it makes me think about one of the analogies I open the nature of rest with is perennial plants. And you think about perennial plants that come back year after year. My family and I, a few years ago, we planted perennial gardens in our yard, and I'm do not consider myself a great gardener. And so I needed an easy button, and I ordered these little garden in a box kits that come as little baby plants, and you put them in the ground and they're supposed to grow and do their thing. Well, we get these things, these baby plants, and they look like weeds. They're just like little clumps of leaves and stems. And I'm like, is this really going to work? But we put them in the ground and we water them. And by the end of that first growing season, there were some buds and even a couple of blossoms. I'm like, wow, it worked. And then fall comes and these plants start withering and turning brown and dry, and they look dead all throughout winter. And I'm wondering, okay, are these things going to come back? But sure enough, in the spring, these little green shoots come up. And then by the end of that second season, these things, some of them were 2, 3 feet tall, bursting with blossoms. The garden is full of color and aroma and the buzzing of insects and pollinators. And these plants, they come back year after year stronger, more beautiful, more fruitful. And the secret to their longevity is long seasons of rest in the winter when they're dormant. It looks like they're dead, but what's happening under the soil is their roots are strengthening. And you have
Hmm.
to wonder, like, I'm not going to like give human qualities to a plant, but you would have to wonder if a plant could think, would it be frustrated after that season of fruit and beauty and growth? Would it be thinking like, oh man, I can't do anything now. I just have to
So
rest.
what am I like? Is it even worth it?
Am I
What am
worthless?
I doing? Am I worthless? Yeah.
Yeah, no, they don't. For one, they can't
No.
think, but
Right.
also because they're still being productive. They're still following God's design. It might not look like much to the people looking at them, but their roots are strengthening. And the same is true for us in those seasons where we feel not as fruitful, where
Yeah.
we're not able to produce as much, where we might wonder, is everyone looking at me and thinking like, well, what is she contributing? No, our roots can strengthen during those
Hmm.
times, and that is vital.
I appreciate that you're like, we're not going to give, the plants are not human, but I guarantee you there are a lot of people listening who feel like a freaking perennial plant, right?
Yeah.
Where, look, I'll give personal example. The last 3 years, I have been working and growing and doing really cool things that were opportunities that I never thought would come. And then God threw the e-brake in March,
Mm.
and our life radically changed. I've talked about it quite a bit. My husband went from being home to working. So now the entirety of, everything that happens under our roof outside, like he's home, but a lot more on my plate. which meant like my work had to be reprioritized, right? Because my children are my top priority. And when my husband was home, I had like a tag team, right? That I could work more and I could be more available. And I'm gonna be, and it's funny. The episode that came out when you and I's episode was supposed to come
Yeah.
out, is the episode where I really got kind of raw and vulnerable about like God from March to now has just been pruning and stripping and tearing away. But let me tell you what, my roots are so much deeper than they were even just 4 months ago, right?
Hmm.
And I'm not going to lie to you. In the beginning of it, I despised it and I struggled with it. And I did not understand why God would have me doing one thing and then change it. And I fought with him. But once I stopped fighting, I have come to really believe that you can't heal on the battlefield that you were wounded on. And
Hmm.
sometimes God will pull you off the battlefield so that you can rest, so that you can heal, so that your roots
Yes.
can deepen. And then that's like, he may not send you out to do the same thing again, but I feel fairly confident in saying that God doesn't call us into a season of rest and then we just like never come out of it, right? I think
Yeah.
he puts us in that to learn how to rest, to learn how to hear him, to heal things. Like, I mean, God and I have been, it's felt like a fire sale for the past 4 months. We're just like, everything's got to go. This was attached to your identity. This had become an idol. This
Hmm.
was distracting you from me. And God was just like, everything has got to go. And you have slowed down enough in this moment to hear me, to do the work, to do the journaling, to do the Bible reading. And so I know that my productivity looks and feels less in this season, but the roots, worth it. 100,000%. I would go
Yeah.
through the crash course and the confusion and the change all over again if how I feel now, still in the midst, is the result.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. That is beautiful and such a valid point because, like we opened up the conversation with, rest can look like so many different things and come from so many different angles. And sometimes it is that absolute need to rest coming out of an intense season
Yeah.
or even a grief season. And in the book, I use the analogy of lichen. Are you familiar with lichen?
Is that a
Like,
fruit?
it's like,
No.
so it's a symbiotic relationship between fungus and algae.
Oh, so
And it's
not
the
a
stuff that
fruit.
you'll see. That's okay. That's
This
okay.
is
But
why
sometimes
you're
it
the
can like
professional.
look the color of fruit because
Yeah,
it's like the
yeah,
bright orange and lime green stuff that
yeah.
you'll see on
Okay.
rocks and trees. And
Yeah.
the stuff is crazy resilient to the point that they have strapped it to the outside of a satellite and it's gone to space. And then on Earth, they subjected it to Mars like conditions and it survives.
Wow.
Crazy resilient. And the way that it does this, they figured out, is by going dormant, where it goes into this crazy deep state of rest until the conditions are better and it can resurface. And we use that to show that sometimes in those intense conditions of life, God is calling us into a deep, deep state of rest like we have never experienced before. But He always means for us to resurface from that to come
Mm-hmm.
back stronger.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we've talked about this a couple of times. And I think it'd be good to dig into these different patterns of rest that you see in the Bible and in nature. That one of the things that you saw was this rest, work, rest rhythm, more like in a seasonal capacity. The idea of a season being defined by rest is very foreign to me. I genuinely think this might be the first one.
Mm.
I'm 30, almost 7. And like I look back at even being postpartum with my babies, and that
Yeah.
should have been a season of rest, and it wasn't. I didn't let it be. And I have my own regrets about that, and it's fine. But this is my first one where it's not just a weekend, it's not just a day. Rest has continued to be a defining trait of what God is walking me through. How did you see that in nature and in scripture? Because I want to talk about like it goes season and then like the stop and delight, like Selah pauses,
Mhm.
and then just intentional rest, like intentional periods of rest. I think we should talk through all three because I think this is really foreign to a lot of people.
Yeah, completely. Well, talking about seasonally, like we talked about the perennial plants that they need those
Yes.
seasons of rest, but even, so one type of perennial plant is, of course, trees. They grow
Right.
their leaves back or, the leafy trees anyway, the deciduous trees are going to grow their leaves back when the time is right. But even trees, they have to prepare to rest before
Mm.
winter comes, where they're going to go through these different systems, including creating a cork block between the stem and the leaf and stopping that production of the green chlorophyll, which allows them to soak up the sunshine because they don't need to make food during the winter as they
Yeah.
do in the summer. So they have like this checklist that they have to go through. And we see the same with hibernating animals, true
Hmm.
hibernating animals. This is a fun one because bears don't actually hibernate. What they do
You
is
told me
called
that last time, and
denning.
I literally
Yeah.
came out of it and was like, "Girls, did you know?" Like,
Yeah. We have an episode on that too.
yes, I think we
That's a fun
listened
one.
to it. We pulled it up.
That's so good. Yeah, that's always just amazed me. But true hibernating animals, which are going to be like some of your smaller mammals and rodents, they go through these four physiological processes where their body temperature is going to drastically drop, their heart rate drastically slows down, their respiration slows way down, and their metabolism does as well. So, all these different things they have to do. And as they're preparing to go into hibernation, a lot of them prepare what's called a hibernaculum, which is actually the den or the area where they're going to rest. So, God has designed these animals with instincts to prepare for rest. And even bears that don't hibernate but den, they go through something called hyperphagia, which is the time leading up to their long winter nap. They are eating up to 20,000 calories a day. Black bears, that's mostly berries. When we were walking around in the wilderness yesterday, we must have been on a bear's trail because we were finding these massive piles of bear scat chock full of choke cherry seeds. Like these bears are eating so many berries right now. That aside, all these creatures and these plants have to prepare for rest. And so, one thing my family has done for over 10 years now is we do an annual hibernation as a family. And so this started when I think we only had two boys at the time. They were really young and we were in this really busy season. It was around the holidays. And my husband came up to me and he said, "Why don't we hibernate?" And I
I'm
was like,
obsessed.
"Tell me more."
Yeah.
So he had this idea and we ran with it where for 2 weeks after the holiday season, so after all that hustle and bustle, we just kind of went dormant. We our evenings, we would turn off the screens. Of course, we had to do like some work during the day, but
Yeah.
evenings, turn off the screens. We would light candles, play music, play board games, eat fun snacks. And it was this 2 week period of just intense rest where we took everything off the calendar that wasn't
Mm.
absolutely essential. And we did that as a 2 week rhythm for several years. And then what we found was that it kind of just became the heartbeat of our winter season to where, like, right now, so we're early September and the days are starting to feel shorter with the sun
Mhm.
going down. I feel it in my body. And that's how God always
100%.
designed us to operate these seasons of rest and really just letting those seasonal cues help invite us into those restful seasons.
And I just have to say, as someone that lives in Southern Louisiana and we don't have a fall, we have
Mhm.
false fall, which is usually a nice weekend where we get 75 degrees and then it goes back into the 90s. I can feel it. Like the more that I
Oh, wow.
slow down and the more that I pay attention to the rhythms of my body and of nature, even if nature doesn't do exactly like the hallmark things that welcome fall, I'm te- I'm telling you, my body knows. Even this morning, I was like, I know that it's hot outside, but I also know that fall is coming. And I know that slower months, right? Like everybody, we go 100% during the summer. I think
Yeah.
we're kind of meant to, right? We're soaking up the sun. Our friends are all out of school. Like we're doing the things. Look at how God created that to shift into a slower rhythm. And it doesn't mean that everything stops, right? It doesn't mean
Mhm.
that you clear the calendar for the whole rest of the year. I think being able to build something like a 2 week, even 1 week, or even like, a couple of days of just intentional Sabbath like that reflects into how you're doing everything else. Like if you're
Mhm.
paying attention, if you're slowing down and honoring the seasons as they come, it really bleeds into and beyond just it being a seasonal rest. And then you can welcome moments of rest into just like your day to day, which I'm still very in process on. And for me lately, it is literally, it sounds, I don't know. I'll put on a song and force myself to sit there and just listen to the song. Just listen
That's
to the
hard.
whole song and not do anything and just enjoy the song. That's been like a little Selah pause that I've been able to give
Yes.
myself. And once you kind of start changing your attitude about all of this, I think then you start to see all of these opportunities to do that. Because you guys also do a weekly Sabbath.
Yeah, yeah. So this became a rhythm of our family about 3.5 years ago. And it was out of necessity. We were in this season where we were just up against a wall. We were exhausted. We homeschool our 4 kids, and my husband and I both run businesses. But really, like, no matter what your situation, no matter what season you're in, we all face this very real human existence of fatigue.
Mhm.
Like, we live in a broken world, and there is a whole lot set up against us. And so we were just in a season where we realized rest was no longer optional. It was critical, it was
Hmm.
vital. And so we took this step of faith and began Sabbathing once a week as a family. And we decided to just go full in, a full day a week. And so for us, that's Friday evening to Saturday evening. And people ask me, well, why not Sunday? Because a lot of people Sabbath on Sunday. And Sunday for us, it's so important for being with our church family, community, fellowship, worship, but it is not exactly restful to
Yeah.
me as a mom,
Especially
as
if
a
you
parent.
serve.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And a lot of Sundays I am. I'm in with the 4th and 5th graders, and I
Same.
get to
Yeah.
teach them, and I love
And I
it.
love it, but this is
Yeah,
not rest.
no, no.
Yeah.
And for us, we knew we needed a separate day that could just be a day set aside to stop and delight. That word Sabbath comes from the Hebrew Shabbat, which can mean to both stop and delight. So it's all about identifying, okay, what are those things we're going to stop and set aside? Some of those might be good things. Like you mentioned, I love my work. But on
Mhm.
those days, I need to set aside my computer, my phone, all of my regular work. It might be setting aside spending money, driving in traffic, going to events. And then what are we going to delight in? And this can be hard because a lot of us have forgotten what we delight in. And so this is a practice of remembering what God created us, like what are the passions he's put inside of us.
Yeah.
And it might be being out in creation, reading a good book. It might be gardening and
Mhm.
being, hands in the dirt. It might be cooking fresh meals with fresh ingredients if you don't get to do that during the week, or having a good conversation with a friend. These inspiring things that truly fuel us up. Some of my favorite things to do on Sabbath are being out in creation, reading, and journaling by hand. And I will
Mhm.
tell you those 3 things, and usually, like, if I'm out in creation, it's always with my family on those days. Those 3 things, they inspire so much of my work. My work would be
Yes.
so much less effective and fun without those activities because they fuel everything I'm doing.
I have a thought that just came to my mind of the mom that's listening, that her work is her home, right?
Mhm.
I know there's a lot of stay-at-home moms, homeschool moms that listen, where rest and taking that break may feel impossible because it's around you all the
Yeah.
time,
Oh,
right?
for sure,
There's
for
no
sure.
computer to put away. The laundry's right there. Your kids are
Yeah.
still asking for things, whether or not you have an involved husband that's, helping
Mhm.
you manage the things. How can we build Sabbath or rest in when like the things that we need a rest from don't stop?
Yeah, that is such a good question. I have a few thoughts on that, and a few ways that we've kind of done this is a lot of this is training our family.
Yes.
It's going to be messy. Step into it knowing that, and then it's going to be worth the effort. So, like on Sabbath, we sleep in, and our kids know not to wake us up. That's just
Yeah.
something we've trained them in. That's going to look different, of course, if you have a newborn or really
Right.
young kids. But other things that we've done that are super practical is we use a lot of paperware on Sabbath. so that there's right, like there's no dirty dishes or very few. And we'll do super simple meals. Think like grilling out, or we get
Yep.
take and bake pizzas is a very
Yep.
common Friday evening dinner.
Mhm.
Tacos, something with less mess. And then Friday, as we're leading up to Sabbath, we do some things around the house. We all pull together.
Yes.
Again, this is training. This is good for a family. And we'll pick up the house and a few things that help it feel clean, like vacuuming and maybe washing the
Mhm.
windows. Just identify those things that you're like, if that doesn't get done, I'm not going to be able to rest.
Yep.
For me, like there is a constant mountain of unfolded laundry on my bed. That
Just
does
kind
not
of
get
is what
handled
it
before
is.
Sabbath. It
Yeah.
is what it is.
Yeah.
Some things you're going to have to just let go. Now,
Yeah.
sometimes I say that sometimes we come up to Sabbath and Friday was busy. We were out hiking. We didn't get home till later than I anticipated. We didn't get a chance to pick up. The house is a mess. How am I going to rest? Those are usually the Sabbaths that we'll head up to the mountains. You might just have to leave it behind in order
Yes.
to rest, and that's okay too.
Yes, I actually was writing about this the other day that if your whole life is at home, sometimes it's restful to get out of your house
Yes,
and and
absolutely.
and go to the park, go to a friend's house, go get out, especially if you work from home and you
Yeah.
homeschool. It does kind of start to close in on you, or even getting out and just going running errands. Now, if you're this is kind of one of those like opposites things where if you're constantly running, if you work outside of the home, if your children, go to school outside of the home, then the idea of running errands is probably the worst, right? It
Yeah,
does
yeah.
not sound restful to you at all. But now, for me, now with older kids and we're home all the time, sometimes I'm like, all right, we're going to the grocery store. We're getting out of here. We're going to like a different, we
Mhm.
need a different scene. Let's get
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
here. And because I now have older kids that aren't, taking down entire shelves with them and they're actually helpful, we left the grocery store the other day because we had one of those moments, and I literally looked at the girls and was like, "This was a delight. This was so
Oh,
lovely. I love getting to go places with you and get all of our groceries and get out of the house." And they're like, "Yeah, it was nice." And so
yeah.
it's getting creative with it. We did the same thing before this long weekend because we're recording the day after Labor Day. And Friday, I was like, "All right, girls, rally." And we put
Mhm.
on Forrest Frank. We blared Forrest Frank throughout the house and we blitz cleaned the
Yeah.
house. Everything, rooms, dishes, dirty, all of it. And then don't you know, we had the chillest weekend.
I
Everybody,
love it.
mom
Yeah.
included, was able to rest. Also, so here for the paper products. That is such a good
Right.
recommendation. Like, we can love the environment and
Yes.
also use paper plates on the weekends because it's great for
Yeah.
mom's sanity.
Yeah, it really is. It's these little tricks that just help you set you up for success. It's not always going to be a success. Like I remember
Yeah.
there was one Sabbath that felt like the epitome of rest.
Mm.
Like what it probably was on the seventh day with God. Like it felt so perfect, so restful, all the right activities, all the right rhythms. And then the next Sabbath started with a trip to urgent care. Like that's reality as a family and with kids. And so going into it, knowing it'll be messy. But
Yep.
I have on my website, I have a full guide that helps you like identify some of these tricks and even write a Sabbath shopping list to get ready. So that's at erinlynum.com/family Sabbath to really like just start getting wrapping your mind around, okay,
Yeah.
how do I set my family up? How do we come into this together? Anticipating the mess, but knowing it's gonna be worth it.
Yeah, I think that's super important to not have the expectations of perfection, right?
Yeah.
Especially the families that are just starting out in this, where your children don't really have any understanding of a rhythm of
Mhm.
rest or responsibility or preparing for those things. You have to give yourself as an adult grace to step into that. And then also welcoming your children into it. Like we have also trained our children that Saturday mornings, mom and dad sleep in. Now, look, the older I get, 6:30, 7 o'clock feels like sleeping in at this point, but still, like they can get up, they can get themselves little snacks. And also it's so fun to wake up and they're playing Barbies together, and we've
Totally.
already kicked off this rhythm of slowing down and like leaning into it and easing into it. And
Mhm.
one of the things that I've we've talked about quite a bit is like that struggle. Like, is this okay? Am
Mhm.
I, is everything going to fall apart if I rest, if I step back for a minute? And I've learned that the answer for all of your fears, all of your guilt, all of your doubt about rest is like God did it and Jesus did it. That is the whole
Completely.
answer.
Completely. They gave us this pattern, this model. Like God set up this pattern at the beginning of time. Think about God created for 6 days and then rested on the 7th day.
Yeah.
He created Adam, the first person, on the 6th day. And so Adam's first full day was that 7th day, a day devoted to rest. So we see that God he worked and then he rested, but we were always meant to begin from rest. Again, it fuels everything that we do moving forward. And then Jesus, when he was here on earth, he was crazy busy. Like you look at his years of ministry, they are this whirlwind of activity where he is teaching and preaching and starting the most successful, long-standing startup in all of history. He's building this team of disciples, casting out demons, healing. He is busy doing God's work, and yet we see this constant rhythm where he
Mhm.
withdrew to a quiet place, eremos, and there he prayed. He was constantly abiding with the Father, abiding in God's restful presence. So yes, like not only are we allowed to do this, we were created to do this. And think about the Israelites in Exodus 16. That's the first mention of Sabbath in scripture.
Mhm.
When God called the Israelites to Sabbath, they had very little context for what he was instructing them to do. He's saying, don't gather on the 7th day. It's a holy day, a Sabbath set apart for the Lord. And surely they could think back, like, okay, God worked and then rested.
Mhm.
But really, they had very little context. This was a call to faith. God was saying, stop gathering. The same is true for us. We are so prone to gather, 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 produce, create, do more, get ahead because we think we are our ultimate provider, but that is not true. That's a lie.
Yep.
God is our ultimate provider, and we are allowed to stop gathering and trust Him as we rest.
I love taking my kids to the movies, but sometimes it can be rough figuring out what movies are okay to take your kids to. Thank goodness for Angel Studios. They have a new movie out right now called Sketch. I took the girls to see it. It's so cute. It's very nostalgic and also embraces like a bigger theme and a message and a lesson. It's this little girl and she's got a notebook. She drops it in a magical pond and the creations that she's drawn inside come to life. So her and her family have to kind of like deal with that and figure out how to make everything better. And so it's this lesson that we are all dealing with big feelings. We all are dealing with hard things, but that together with love and family, we can face anything. And right now, if you become a premium Angel Guild member, you can get 2 free tickets to see Sketch in theaters and full access to their streaming library, which we love. We watch so much stuff from Angel, both the girls and Jeremy and I. And so you can go to angel.com/Blake, become a premium Angel Guild member, get your sketch tickets, and get access to a ton of awesome content as well. We are so prone to gather. And it's not the gathering is bad, right? The
Yeah.
gather is necessary. There's a lot of scripture about hard work, and we see God working hard. And like you just said, Jesus working hard. But when we leave that really vital element, when we leave the rest element out of it, like we've already talked about, it spirals out of control. And I think I actually put up a post like a week or so ago because I had this revelation where I was doing that back and forth. Are you sure, God? Is rest okay? Like, is this, it feels wrong for someone like, the
Mm.
type A trying to break out of the unhealthiness. Cause I think there's a healthy way to be type A, right? Like God
Yeah.
created
Yeah.
us with these capabilities and with these drives. And so I'm trying to step into a healthier rhythm of it. And I'm like, all right, we're opening the Bible. Like, let's just look at it in black and white. And I went to reading it in Genesis. I'm like, God did not need to rest.
Mm-mm.
God did not have a human body. He was not the God man. He is the eternal creator. He was forming everything out of nothing. He did not need to rest, but he did. And I fully believe it's because he wanted us to be able to point to him and to go, the God that did not need to rest rested. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And think about this concept of gathering. Like, you're talking about how God created us and he created us to produce, to
Right.
create. And so a lot of that can look like gathering, which isn't bad, but think about a hummingbird. I opened the book with an analogy of a hummingbird, and hummingbirds are constantly gathering. They have to visit between 1,000 and 2,000 flowers every single day to get all of that sweet nectar they need. So when they're buzzing around, they are a blur of motion. You can't even see their little wings because they flap up to 70 times a second. And to fuel that constant activity, their little hearts have to beat around 1,200 times a minute. It's crazy.
It is
And yet,
crazy.
what sustains them in this constant gathering and movement is a strategy of rest called torpor, which is like a mini hibernation, where the
Mm,
little bird, it goes into this deeply restful state where it will lower its body temperature by about 50 degrees and become completely unresponsive. Some people have found hummingbirds in torpor before and thought they were dead because they're not doing anything. They look dead, but it's this regular, rhythmic, intentional rest that allows them to go about their work and to keep gathering. So, again, that whole concept of work and rest are not separate. Rest doesn't
mhm.
take away from our work, rest actually enables and gives life to all of our work.
Yeah. No, that's so good. That's so crazy about hummingbirds that they're like dead, but they're resting. I feel that. There have been moments where I'm like, "Hey, am I dead? I am so tired." But it's like, but all I needed was a nap and maybe to get on my knees and put my face on the floor and be in the presence of God and cry. Like
Yeah.
I was talking to a girlfriend about that the other day. I've spent so many years not crying, which is a whole story of its own, that crying feels restful sometimes. Like
Yeah.
just letting it go enough to let it out. And also there's all of the science of like, your hormones and biologically how like good for you crying is and how it helps you process through trauma and pain. Shoot, sometimes I need to lay on my face on my floor and cry out to God, and
Yeah.
that is rest for my soul.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One of the things that you touch on in the book and that we've talked about before also is boundaries with rest. I
Mhm.
think that would be a really good thing to talk about because there are going to be people, there are going to be requirements, there are going to be organizations, whatever, things in your life that they don't get it. What
Mhm.
do you mean Sabbath? Why are you not 100% available 24/7? If you can't hold boundaries, rest is going to be significantly more difficult for you.
Yeah, that's a very true and such a valid point. And as I mentioned earlier, rest and Sabbath, they're so countercultural that, yeah, people are not going to understand. But I want to encourage you that many people will respect you for it and they'll understand your boundaries.
And
That was
probably
something
be
that really
inspired by it.
completely. One thing that I do, I talk about in the book about how we have to prepare for Sabbath mentally, spiritually, and physically. And one way I prepare mentally is I have to really put away all my work. And so I will put an away message on my email. First, I answer any lingering ones that are going to be like, oh, if I don't answer that, that's
Mhm.
going to bother me over Sabbath.
Mhm.
Answer all those. And then I put a away message that if anyone emails me, it tells them, hey, my family's resting, has a little blurb in there about Sabbath. And then it says, I'll get back to you next week. I've gotten such cool responses because I think people, yeah, they're like, "You can do that?"
Right? Wait, is
And
this
it's
allowed?
and I've had mom friends of mine who, like, I'm their friend and our kids are friends, who have sent a text and be like, "Hey, my child's having a birthday on this day. I'm so sorry it's a Saturday."
Yeah.
Like, they apologize that they're asking me to do something on a Saturday. Now, I will say there are certain things that we're going to not, like, break our Sabbath, we're not that legalistic about it, but change our rules around because we mainly stay home as a family on Sabbath or go hiking. But one thing we've made allowances for is birthday parties for our kids' friends if it's their core people. If these
Mhm.
are families that share our values and we do life with, because a huge value of ours is creating healthy, strong Christian community for our children. And so that's always a yes. Like, yeah, I can run you to that birthday party. I'm probably not going to stay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go home and like read my book and rest.
Yeah.
But I'll take you to that because that's important. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, having those boundaries and also so much of this. this is a whole different subject, but so much of this comes back to knowing your family's values. What is important to you?
Yes.
Rest quickly became one of our core values when we started
Yes.
this practice, but it revolves so much around that because what Sabbath has done is created this space for our family to attend to our values.
Mhm.
You know, once you identify those things, what is important to our family? You need space to take care of them, to nurture them, and that is what Sabbath has become for us.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up about the birthday parties because I think that celebration can be rest as well,
Mhm.
right? That sometimes, especially if you're extroverted, which multiple people in my family are, being around other people doesn't zap your energy, right? It fills you up.
Right,
And
yeah.
so celebrating someone that you love, you can work that in, like maybe not every week, but I
Right.
I I love it. Like, yes, we don't want to be legalistic about this to a point where we're missing out on like loving someone well,
Right.
right? Because that can be rest. That is life-giving. That is encouraging. And then the family values is so important. It's so funny when my husband and I got married. We were married for a little over like a year and a half before we had our oldest. And we kind of did our family values were originally very simple. It was work hard, play harder, rest hardest. Was this little like
That's so good.
magnet that I got made
Yeah.
and we put it on the fridge. Had no idea at the time that I actually didn't know how to rest and that I really wasn't super great at playing, but work I could do. But if you
Yeah.
actually look at the hierarchy of it, hard work was lowest on the totem pole for
Mm.
us. And it is so cool because it's held true. The girls know it. We all, we all say it. You add to it, and there's other
Yeah.
values that come alongside that. But now in this season, can I rest hardest so that I can play, so that I can work? And that's
Yes.
been around for almost 15 years. And
Hmm.
I'm just now stepping into it. And it's really cool to look back and see that I feel like God was kind of setting the table then to go
Yeah.
like, I appreciate that you know that rest is important, but you don't live
Yeah.
like you believe it yet, babe.
Yes. Oh my goodness. We had a similar journey when we were pregnant with our third son. We went on a baby moon and we didn't plan to do this, but we were just driving through the Ozark Mountains in the rain one glorious day. And I opened my journal and I just wrote at the top family values.
Yeah.
And my husband and I started to just brain dump everything we wanted to be important to our family. And over probably the next year, we really refined it into a list of core values. And there were things on there like share the gospel in our home. And that meant as a family, but also inviting other people into our home to share the
Mhm.
gospel and exploring out in creation and work hard, work smart. And so we had these values, but it wasn't until years later that God truly, out of necessity, began impressing upon us rest, true biblical, effective,
Mhm.
intentional rest had to be a core value. And when we did that, it enabled all those other values. It opened up
Exactly.
space for us to be out in creation, like yesterday, wandering through the wilderness looking for beaver dams. It opened up space to share the gospel in our home because we're just home together during the
Yes.
Sabbath. And we love inviting people over for the Sabbath to share that special time of celebration. And it taught us to work hard, work smart, while all of that is supported through rest. And
Yeah.
so it really became this foundation for all those other values.
And you didn't even know when you were building it, you had no idea what that was going to look like. And I think that
No.
goes back to holding all of this open handedly. Hope
Mm.
your Sabbath, your rest, your values, what this looks like, how you do it, how you prepare for it. If you have that type A personality and you need this really badly, I think there can be a tendency, I'm certainly not speaking from experience, to like perfectionism eyes even rest,
Mhm. Oh,
right?
yeah.
And you talked about that earlier, like, oh, this didn't get done, the house isn't perfectly clean, now I can't rest, or this thing came up, what do we do? Are we flexible? Can we make this work? And so I said this earlier and you resonated with it as well, but I think it's a really important thing to kind of land on is that resting is trusting God.
Absolutely.
Resting is surrender. and trusting that the God and the creator of the universe is at work in you, in your life, in the life of people that you love, and in your home. And this is an opportunity to radically live like it, to just like completely let go and go, I'm taking a day off and God is going to keep everything spinning. It's kind of scary,
Completely.
especially if you've got that hard wiring of, the productivity and the doing all of the things. If you're in the midst of God ripping all of that apart,
Mhm.
rest can feel unsafe. I know that will sound extreme to some people, but there have been days where I'm like, I know that God wants me to rest today, but this does not feel safe.
Yeah.
But doing it on those days are the days where it stretches your capacity, and then the next time you can like do it a little bit more.
Completely. Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And just consider what this is. If you're a parent, consider what this is modeling to your children, this kind of faith. Especially, like, I think we're very similar that we love working.
Hmm.
When our kids see us setting aside the work for a day, that speaks volumes. When our
Yes.
kids see us surrendering, maybe leaving some things around the house undone so we can hang out with them for a day, that
Hmm.
speaks volumes. I think about when our oldest son was 11 years old. We were about a year and a half into our Sabbath practice. And our first year, we went totally cold turkey. We didn't even drive anywhere. We stayed home. We're loving this rhythm. And then we experienced this sudden loss in my husband's family. And so we have 3 weeks of traveling and grieving and a memorial service, and we're completely out of our rhythm. And our son came to us after the third missed Sabbath. He said, Mom, Dad, can we please Sabbath this weekend?
Mm.
He felt it deep inside himself because we are designed for this. Your children are designed for this. And as you step back into it and it feels risky and it feels unsafe and it feels unpredictable, uncomfortable, just know this is God's design. He made us for this. Yes, it will be messy, but also He's going to bring so much fruit from it and it's going to be worth every messy moment.
Yeah, that's so good. And also a reminder of, God is welcoming us into having faith like a child. So
Mhm.
yeah, rest is easier for our kids because the world hasn't gotten to them and told
Yeah.
them, and wrapped their identity up in it. I actually thought about that over this long weekend, how thankful and almost like proud I am that my girls are good at rest. They're not
Yeah.
lazy. They will do the things, but if we throw the rest switch, they gonna find a pillow, they gonna find a blanket, they gonna find a
Yeah.
book, they're gonna get in a cozy spot. My girls know how to snuggle in and just be. And I was like, I hope that the hope is that we can tend to that. Like I feel
Mhm.
like so much of motherhood is tending, right? It's these little shoots of a plant, and you're going, yeah, yes, this is like here's the water, here's the environment, here's like
Yeah.
the things so that that we work really hard during the week. I was thinking about that this weekend too, that we work hard during the week. We work hard in our school. We work hard to take care of our home. I work hard in my business. That on the other side of that, yes, is this rhythm of slowing down and doing less and doing things that bring you joy and fill you up and also give your body, the ability to take a break. I love that my kids are seeing that, and that, we did something Saturday night and Sunday, and by Monday morning my youngest was like, "Yo, I'm done." Like
I
we're
have one of those too. Yeah.
yeah, she was like, "What? I don't wanna go to the pool. I wanna
Yeah.
stay home."
Yes. I
And
love that though
so
that we get to kind of like encourage that. Like that's
yeah,
okay. And
yeah,
we should want these rhythms and I love what you're saying too about hard work because one thing that shocked me is shouldn't have. I should have trusted God better with this. But one thing that shocked me when we started celebrating Sabbath is we work harder during the week. We
yes.
are so much more focused and effective because we know that rest is coming. And so
Yes.
our 5 days of work and Sundays, we kind of like move back into work starting
Mhm,
in the afternoon, heading into
mhm.
evening, getting ready for the week. So I'd say like our 5.5 days of work that we do, they are so focused and effective and then we rest really hard on Sabbath.
Yes, and I would agree with you. But I even see that in my day. right? I
Yeah.
even see the same thing in my day where when I wake up in the morning, a day like today when we're recording, this is my office day. This is
Mhm.
I wake
Yep.
up at 6 and by 8 I have hit the ground and I don't stop until 5 or 6 o'clock tonight. I'm also,
Right.
slamming 40 hours of work into one day and it's great.
That's my
But
Tuesdays also.
yes, but I can do it because I know that for me, like my mom's making dinner tonight. My parents have my kids today. My mom is making dinner tonight. I'm going to get to go sit around the table with my parents and
Mm,
eat food that I didn't have to make, that I grew up on, and probably play some Mario Kart and just be
so good.
together. And so that's even not even on like the bigger scale, building that in like I posted something the other day. Our Wednesdays are pretty crazy too because we've got one at dance and one at cheer and then this one and then this one. But there's 35 minutes where both my husband and I are home and there isn't a kid at home. And we take full advantage. We put our phones
Yeah.
away and we talk to each other, and yeah, maybe we are like doing the dishes while we're doing those things, but getting, like we do school and then I work and then we run these kids to all those places and then we go, hi. Oh my gosh, it's just you and me. It's so nice to see you. What's up? How are you doing?
Yeah.
So you can have that in your week and you can also build that into your day. And I think it replenishes us for the next day and allows us to keep pushing and also gives us hope and something to look forward
Mhm.
to. And so it really is. I know we've said it a million times, but it is just rest is an integral part of how God created us. And I'm so thankful for people like you that are like leading the charge and sounding the alarm like, hey guys, what we're doing isn't working. We are
Yeah.
so tired and on the brink of burnout and not doing our best work. And I think for everything from like your podcast welcomes in rest. I feel like it's just like we were talking about at the beginning, having something for my kids to listen to that
Mhm.
isn't screen time, that's educational, but also gives me a second. Like I'm
Oh,
just fangirling
completely.
for a second. Like you just do such a good
Oh,
job. Your
thank
book is
you.
such an incredible resource. You have so many resources on your website. Like you have become kind of a go-to for
Mm.
me in this topic. And so I'm so thankful that you were willing to come back on. This is the second time we had to do this. I'm gonna say like a whole prayer over all my tech
Over the
when we
technology.
end this. But yeah, I just think if people are like me and they're on the journey of learning, you're an incredible place to land for that.
Thank you. That is so encouraging. Thank you. God's done quite a work in our family in this area of rest, and it's a blessing to just get to share it. And to be honest, like it's messy and it's hard, and it's such an encouragement to get to share that story because it's like every time he's like,
Yeah.
keep going. I'm doing something great. And I get to see the fruit of that. Like he's so, so good to bring the fruit.
Yeah. Amen.